why it's so important to be a leader for your children. A leader makes a child feel good about themselves. Between the ages of 3 and 12 years old, you're at the height of your leadership. They want to please you. It's just a natural instinct. You've ever had a good teacher or a grandparent or a mentor or coach that you looked up to?
Yes.
Would you ever be rude to that person?
So I've definitely been in my feels lately, and it makes me really happy that I have a therapist that I know and love and trust, because I just can't imagine going through life without a therapist at this point. You actually had me laughing so hard, Casey. I was listening to one of our episodes and you reference your therapy.
Therapy, it's the plural of therapist. I made it up and it sticks. So I have 3 currently.
Yeah, I mean, there's no shame in our game. We think that therapy and mental health services are so important. So grateful that BetterHelp is a sponsor of the show. We want to make sure that you and our audience has access to it as well. All you have to do is go to betterhelp.com/motherup and you can get access to licensed therapists who are trained to listen and give you that helpful, unbiased advice. I mean, I know that you have us, but unfortunately we can't directly talk to you through the podcast, but you go to their site, you answer a few questions, and they match you to somebody who has years of experience, who is helping people just like you in a way that fits you. So whether it's somebody that is faith-based or if you prefer a certain gender, I mean, they really get specific in how they can select a therapist for you. You do it all from your phone or computer, video calls, phone calls, messaging,
and
however you feel
demand.
the most comfortable. You'll be matched with somebody usually within 48 hours, so you can get started fast for those issues that really just can't wait. So thank you to our sponsor, BetterHelp. Let them connect you to a therapist who could support you, all from the comfort of your own home. Visit betterhelp.com/motherup and enjoy a discount of 10% off of your first month on us. So I know that I have been sharing with you the struggles of having a 3-year-old girl as of late, and that I keep saying to you, I can't wait for Jack and the impending Miss Hosmer to get to the age of 3 so that you can experience all the joys of this too, Casey.
Jack loves the word no at almost 2 years old, but he doesn't actually mean no 100% of the time. Like I'll be like, do you want another bite of food? No. And then he'll open his mouth like a baby bird. So I'm anxious to bring in Lisa on this because he's exerting his power and his will, but he doesn't necessarily mean it. So I don't want to correct him every single time.
And I think that's part of it. Like they can, exercise their independence, do all of that. That's fine. That's part of it. Like we as adults do that. We may not do it in the way that Jack and Sienna do by screaming into somebody's face.
No, we do it when we like a boy and we act like we don't like a boy. I mean,
right.
It's the same juvenile.
I want to make sure that all moms and everyone listening knows bad behavior, I think, is kind of part of what we signed up for, but there's obviously to a point where it can become a problem. And how do we make sure it doesn't get that way? How do we feel like we have the support to make sure we're making the right decisions? So we brought in the expert
the big
today.
Guns.
The big guns. Lisa Bunnage is here. Lisa Bunnage is here, made famous with her website and courses that she has, the Brat Busters. So we're going to figure it out today. Lisa, thank you so much for being here with us.
My mom sends me one of your TikToks daily. If not daily, it's 3 times a week. And I was so excited to get you on here. So is Gianna. I think my mom is this is going to be her favorite episode because she's obsessed with you. And there's nothing worse than a bratty kid, especially when it doesn't belong to you and you're forced to be around it, him or her. Let's put a little bit of a personality to this child. It's so hard. My number one question is not about my own children. It's what do you do when somebody else's child is a BRAT?
Mm-hmm.
You're asking me that question. I'm not going to answer that because there's nothing you can do with someone else's kid. But Casey, what I want to ask you is how old is your little Jack that says no all the time?
Jack his birthday's in September. We stopped doing the months thing. It's just so dumb. I can't keep track of it. I have been telling people he's 19 months for 19 months, but he'll be 2 in September.
Almost 2.
Yes.
Okay, almost 2. And Sienna is almost 3?
Sienna is 3.5. She'll be 4 in November.
Oh, 3.5. Okay.
And Asher is 1, but he's not talking he's not yelling no at you yet.
No.
Okay. So yeah, there's nothing you can do with other people's kids. Just suffer through it and walk away. I mean, if you can, but there's nothing you can do with other people's kids, or I've never done anything. Did you want to ask me something about your own kids?
Does it transfer? Like, do you know what I mean? Like when your kids are around, it doesn't transfer.
No. It will under the age of 3 because they're more impressionable and they haven't got your leadership cemented into them yet. But past the age of 3, especially 3 and 9 months, 3 and 9 months is when they really are sort of cemented into something. So if you're a leader, they're cemented. I call it the umbrella. They're under your leadership umbrella and they're not impressionable by other people because they're just looking to you because you're like their mentor. You're like their go-to. You're their safe place to land. So about 3 years and 9 months, 3.5 to 4 around there is when they really are not impressionable by other people.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Okay. Well, I definitely saw it happen. Like we had a few other kids stay with us recently that were like 5, 7, 9. And she definitely picked up on things that they would say or ways that they would talk back to their mother, but we were able to course correct it. So is that what you mean? Like she trusts us more than she trusts them to know that like what we're saying is right?
Well, then you know you're a leader if they're looking to you. I know when we were out with our kids and they were little, and a kid would say something or do something that they knew I wouldn't like. I was the leader. They knew I wouldn't like. They would just kind of look over at me like, what's this kid doing?
Okay. And what would you do? So I do this. I do this. I do with my eyeballs.
The eyebrow raise.
Yeah, I had the look, but they didn't. They would just sort of point to the other kid as if, have you seen this, Mom? Like it wasn't that they tried to do it. But anyway, okay, I'm talking about when you're already a leader, but that's usually what does not come up in lives or videos. Right. It's how do I become a leader?
Yes.
So what I always focus on is your connection with your children. The discipline is a very tiny part of all this. It's maybe 1%. You want to be connected with your children in their world. So when they're 2 years old, you might, if they're just doing something silly, go over and join in with them. They tend to look at you differently when you join in their world. Never expect a little child to find their inner adult. And I think that's a real big mistake that a lot of parents are making. Use your words, calm down. That's ridiculous. They are using their words. So you want to learn how to enter their world to connect with them rather than them trying to bring them up to your world. I see that a lot, and it's a big mistake because it's not a connection there.
But what if you're in their world and they're doing something destructive? They're coloring and they're playing and they start eating the crayon, or they whip the crayon against the drywall, or my son loves rocks, like whips the rocks at somebody walking by. What do you do? What reaction do you do?
I never use the word whip. It's interesting you said that because they whip it. I'm going to use that. I like that. No, that's a good one. So if they do something that you don't like and they're under the age of 3, you just say no, and then you do consistent corrective actions. So if they throw a crayon, I would pick that up and put it away. If they threw another one, I might put the whole thing away and say, okay, let's go do something else. They will eventually learn. But when they're under the age of 3, it's a slow burn. They're not going to learn right away. It's repetition, because they're not stopping and thinking before they act until they're about 3. And even then, they don't always do it. Now, another mistake that a lot of parents make is they feel that their children need to understand why they shouldn't do it. No, they kind of already get it. They know that they don't see you whipping. They don't see you whipping rocks across the room. They kind of already get it, but it's not a lack of understanding. It's a lack of impulse control.
I saw something recently in that vein that said, instead of just saying no, then offer them something else to do, or like offer them the better behavior to do. Is that something that you would advise?
You can. I don't do it all the time. But yes, you can in certain situations. I would kind of need an example.
Well, Jack would do it again. If I say, Jack, that's not nice, you can't throw the rocks. He was kicking sand at dinner.
Don't say that's not nice. Don't say that's not nice.
Oh, okay. So this is good. So he was kicking sand.
The fewer words, the better. They don't. Now he's only 2. So it's the word no, that's not nice. The word no says it all.
Okay.
The more words you use, the more you explain, the more they act up. The more you explain, the more they complain. The more you explain, the more they tend to keep going. It's just the way it is. So just say no, and then remove him or remove the fun from him. So you either remove the child from the fun or remove the fun from them. You don't need to explain all this.
But I've also heard that you shouldn't take your child out of a restaurant if they're like they need to learn to sit at the table like
Oh, I would never put.
I love
I would
it.
never put diapers.
She's
through
grabbing
that.
her pigtails. She's freaking out.
strangling herself with her pigtails.
Oh, yeah. There's no way I would put people through that. I think that's ridiculous.
Okay, so let me
To
walk
put
you through
other
the scenario.
diners through it.
So Jack kicks sand, it gets in a girl's eye. You can't do that, buddy. Does it again. We sit him in the chair, he screams, won't go in the high chair. So you take them out.
No, it's already done. So he's kicked sand in someone's hair or in someone's face or whatever. You say no, you take him away from the sand. You do not allow that to happen again because he's just been violent and hurt someone.
Mm-hmm.
You do not allow that to happen again. You say no, and then you redirect because you're out. I'm assuming you're out somewhere in public.
Yeah, we were at a restaurant on the beach. Yeah, like a dinner restaurant on the beach.
I was thinking, what restaurant has sand in it? I got to get out more. Okay, so a restaurant on the beach. So yeah, I wouldn't allow him to keep doing it. You're just setting him up to fail.
Mm-hmm.
So I would prevent it. Now, here's how you take a toddler out to a restaurant. This is how you do it. We took our toddlers to fancy restaurants, and people would see us coming in and they go, oh my God, no.
Yeah.
Oh no. They're there to eat their fancy restaurant food and, Anyway, so, but by the end of it, they'd walk out saying, oh my God, your kids are so good. Here's what I did. I fed them before we went because they might not want quail under glass or whatever it is. I don't know. Not that I would either. But anyway, so I fed them before we went. Then on the way there, I took them to a park, and you don't just swing them. That's not exercise. You have them, okay, 2 swings. Now let's run around the swing set twice. 2 swings, let's run. You wear them out. And then when we got there, Mom, look what Mom has. I always had a goodie bag. And I had coloring, crayons, because you can't rely on a restaurant to have those placemats that they can color on, right? So, but I always had something up my sleeve. And the kids, they were fed, and you meet their needs, right? They were fed, they'd exercised, so they were okay to sit still for a while. And then I brought them something brand new to look at. And they just sit there the whole time.
It's hard finding something new every time you go out.
You know
no,
what?
but it's just a new and different toy that they haven't played with that day. That's what I find.
It's not. I don't bring toys. I don't bring toys. I wouldn't bring toys into a restaurant. Like the cars.
Oh, wow.
I wouldn't do that. I only bring like creative stuff like coloring. And no, I would not bring paint sets or Play-Doh.
That falls under toys in my.
Yeah, but you don't bring something that they're actually going to go, and physically play with. It was more just something they're going to sit and do. And we were kind of interacting with them too. And, oh, that's nice. Oh, good for you. And, but I always brought them stuff to do.
So that's the preemptive thing. What do you do during it? So my son's been having this thing. He's I guess 18 months old, and he wants to eat his French fries before his burger or before his grilled chicken. And if my husband is like, no, you have to have a piece of chicken first. You have to have a piece of chicken first. And he'll scream. And that's where we're like, okay, other people don't need to listen to this, obviously. But then if we then give him the French fries, and I find once he has like 10, he's like, all right, I'm over it. I satisfied that need. Now give me the chicken. But I don't want the screaming at all. I'd rather not teach him to just eat the French fries. Like if we get to one scream, you're recommending just picking him up and taking him out?
No, you already set him up to fail. You didn't feed him before you went out. Plus, let's say you have in front of you, I'm a health food nut, so it wouldn't work for me, but let's say you had broccoli and chocolate, and someone said to you, don't touch that chocolate till you've had the broccoli. You're asking that of an 18-month-old?
Yeah.
You see, it's unrealistic. It's not, toddlers are actually very easy.
That's where my husband and I get into it, because he's always like, well, get the fries. They like the fries. And I'm like, but they also equally like the fruit that comes with it, or they don't need it at all. So I feel like I maybe need to start saying like, we're good on the fries. You don't need to bring any fries over to this table.
That's right.
Because it's tempting for them.
You put it in front of the poor kid. You set them up to fail.
Right. Like the bread, like the bread basket. As soon as you sit down, they give you a big heaping basket of bread. And it's like, no, bring me shrimp cocktail as soon as we sit down.
I'd be horking into that bread and butter so fast. Anyway, but you get the
warm
idea.
Bread, no shot.
The feeding them before is definitely low hanging fruit, and it makes sense. Like that's, but when you're trying to get pretty and fancy, it's hard.
Yeah, but I also see like them eating at the restaurant is the activity that like keeps them busy.
When he likes what he's eating, he is locked in the whole dinner.
Yes.
But my kids could have eaten there too. But the whole point is they've already had the healthy meal. So whether or not, and then when they have fries, who cares?
Right.
They've already had the fruit and the vegetables at home.
Okay.
Right? I controlled their nutrition. Plus,
That's
they start to
interesting.
learn from a very young age. They start to pick up on your calm leadership. When I said something was going to happen, they knew it was going to happen. But I picked my battles. Like I wouldn't pick something unless I knew it was good for them and it had to happen. Like it's bedtime and they toddle off to bed because they knew when mom said it's bedtime, they would just go to bed. Whereas my ex was a very good dad, but if he said, let's go to bed, they might run in the opposite direction because they think he might, oh, okay, you can play for another 5 minutes. I never said something unless I was going to follow through. And a lot of parents don't do that. They say something and then they go, oh, shoot, I can't even follow through. I was very careful with that. So, but I had a lot of experience with kids before I had my own.
That's
so it made
hard
it easier.
because I feel like that's what all these Instagram reels say when they have the music playing in the background. It's like when you're taking your kids to bed and they say, I want to jump in the pool. It's like, jump in the pool.
Oh
my God,
I don't hear any of that, so I wouldn't know. But plus, I only teach what I know. So, and I know a lot of stuff out there that I've never looked at. I have no idea what else is out there because I only teach from experience. So, but when I get clients, I have to fix a lot of this stuff. Like that's why they hire me. They go, that didn't work. And I'm go, okay, so let's get to work. I'm not problem-based, I'm solution-based. So I really don't care what you did in the past, but I know how to set you up as a leader so you can sail right through those teen years. I'm investing in tomorrow, like today and tomorrow. The past really, I'm not a yesterday person at all. So I'm solution-based. So I know how to set you up as a leader so you can relax. You don't have to discipline. You can be best friends with your kids. And they will respect you.
When do I have to hire you? Because I'm having a daughter in October and I'm already afraid of 13.
You're having a daughter in October and you're afraid of 13. Oh, I see. Okay.
Yes.
13. Well, teenagers, I'm going to read out. I actually have 4 tips for teenagers and for parents of teenagers. I just added the third one because I don't know why I didn't think of it before because it comes up in coaching all the time. Anyway, teenagers are wonderful. They're my favorite age. I specialize in teens. But
that's so comforting to hear. Everybody it scares me to death
like,
of them.
Just
so
wait
this is
until
good.
she's stealing your car and
Yeah, but the problem is that parents just don't adjust their parenting to the teenage world. And that's the problem. When you learn how to do this, like my son was 15, he would have loved to have rebelled. He had it in him. I knew that. But he never did. He said to me, he was 15, and he was kind of mad when he said this. And he says, you've been a really difficult mom. And I was shocked. I thought it was wonderful. And I said, what? And he said, because I could never rebel. You're too reasonable and easy to talk to. Now, I didn't know whether to apologize or celebrate. So I apologized to his face, and then I went and celebrated. So, but there's when you're a leader, there's nothing to rebel against. We talked about everything. Okay. These are my top 4 tips for parenting teenagers. And they are all very important. I don't throw anything in that isn't, like, in my mind anyway. Okay, number 1 is you listen to understand and show empathy. You don't listen to gather information to lecture with. If you do, they will shut you out. If they want advice, they'll ask for it. By the way, they already know it. Okay.
I feel like are you giving us husband advice too?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, a lot of my coaching is marriage counseling, but I'm not a marriage counselor. But they always say that. I've actually been hired afterwards to help with the marriage.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I said, don't do that. But they did it under, like, oh, it's about the kids. No, it isn't. I can tell this is just about you. Oh, yeah, but the kids were, whatever. Okay. Number 2 is you negotiate pretty much everything with teenagers. Now, it's not a blanket statement, but it goes something like this. Hey, I want you to put your dirty clothes in the hamper from now on. What do you want from me? Reciprocity, respect, right? Okay, when you get good at this, they just start to listen. It's just different. Number 3, this is the one I just added. And this comes up all the time in coaching. Don't leverage the good times to talk about the bad times, because I teach parents how to connect with their teenagers so you can be friends with them. Here's what they often do. It was great. We had the best conversation. So once we were sitting chatting, I decided to talk about all the hell they put me through. Oh my God, are you kidding me? They're going to shut you. And then they told me to F off and they ran away. So I'm like, yeah, I would too.
So like, when do you talk about it?
Well, we'll get into that in a minute, but it's not part of my 4 tips. Okay. Number 4 is don't sweat the small stuff. If they do something stupid and it's not a big deal, just say, that was stupid. We all do dumb things and don't worry about it. Laugh it off. So, but when do you discuss the bad stuff? Now, why do you need to?
To course correct?
How's that
to be
working?
A leader?
How's that gonna work? No. I'm dying to tell you the story that I only tell in coaching, but it's kind of next level. And I'm guessing that most of your clients or most of your listeners probably have young children. It's about teenagers. I never discuss the bad behavior.
Okay, so you catch Susie drinking in the woods. You hear from your friend she was out drinking in the woods, smooching boys at 15. And my husband would just hurl himself
Okay.
in front of a moving truck at that point in time. So I don't bring it up to Susie?
What I would say is, I'll tell you what, things didn't go very well, did they? How are we going to work forward? How are we going to move forward? Let's figure this out together. Does she not know what she did wrong? What are you going to berate
my
her?
whole body is
her?
about to jump through my skin.
But that's why I'm hired, because I have to talk parents off the cliff.
Right.
And now I specialize in troubled
to separate
teenagers.
the emotional into the logistical of what's actually going to work and get through to the child.
But when do you bring it up? Because she might slam her door and say, F you.
That's fine. Then wait till she comes out, or you can go in there and say, let's figure this out together. The thing is, I don't just go in with these problems right away. I'm hired for these problems. But the first 2 sessions out of 5, often 10 or 15, but the first 2 sessions are how to connect and bond with your teenagers so they will listen. If you don't have a relationship with them to start with, you can do nothing about that. So we have to work on connecting and showing reciprocity and respect. That's why we start with listen to understand. But I already kind of answered that. When you do approach her, you say, look, that didn't go very well. How can we work together to sort this out? I don't know if you guys have heard the pool story. It's one of my first videos on my social media platforms, and it's called Example of Leadership Parenting. And it's about how this 8-year-old kid did something he wasn't supposed to do. I yanked him out of the pool, and then I just started bonding with him for 10 minutes. I said, you're going to sit here with me for 10 minutes. All I did was connect with him. And you won. Oh, and you did this. I never once mentioned what he did wrong. Then when I said, okay, 10 minutes is up and go back in the pool. If I had said, don't do that again, I would have wrecked everything. That's not a leader. That's a berater. That's a bully.
Yep.
That's a bully. So I've just connected with this kid. And then I'm going to ruin it. And don't do that again. Remember, you're rotten. I almost forgot to mention that again. Remember?
Was this your child or somebody else's child?
Someone else's child. I do that with my own kids too. I never discuss what they did wrong. They already know. I just say, well, that didn't go very well. You shouldn't hit. Now let's get on to this. Here's the consequence. How can we work this out?
Well, it's when you create, is it fair to say, because it's like when you create that relationship, they feel a bond to you, and there's nothing worse to them than disappointing you after that. It's like, it's how it's like people say, like, I'm not mad, but I'm disappointed. And like that stings more.
I would never say that to a child.
I expected more from you.
It's almost like saying you're rotten. Now we're getting into the philosophy.
Oh my God. I remember if I wanted to go to the movies and then like out with my friends for dinner, my dad would call me Paris Hilton because I would need like $30 instead of $20. So I can't call my daughter Paris Hilton if she wants $30 to go out to dinner.
Would she know who Paris Hilton was?
I did know who it was because I was in high school and I knew who she was.
Okay. Is that a bad thing? Not necessarily. That doesn't feel bad.
Okay, can you say money doesn't grow on trees?
That feels kind of funny.
Right. So
like that doesn't like there's nothing there that I go, oh.
But would that be an instance for reciprocity for you? Where you would say, sure, you know what, I'll give you $30, I'll drive you to the mall.
No, you're discussing money now, and it's kind of
Lisa, I'm more confused.
Yeah, okay. Let me just explain. I was just going to get into why it's so important to be a leader for your children. A leader makes a child feel good about themselves. Between the ages of 3 and 12 years old, you're at the height of your leadership. They want to please you. It's just a natural instinct. Have you ever had a good teacher or a grandparent or a mentor or coach that you looked up to?
Yes.
Would you ever be rude to that person?
Right.
No.
It would be embarrassing. That's your superpower as a leader. Now, I had that right through the teen years too. It's not that they want to please you when they're teenagers. They just don't want to disappoint you. It's an unsaid thing though. Okay. And now when you say, can I have $30 for the movie? Why is a teenager asking for money to go to the movies? Don't they have their own, haven't they been taught money management and how to manage their own finances? Right? I give allowance and they have to what the heck are you doing asking your dad for money to go to the movies? Like
I didn't get an allowance.
My kids would, you have to have allowance. You have to teach them how to manage money. So if my kids had asked me for money, I go, what are you talking about? I would have been like, what? What are you talking about?
What's a good allowance right now for a teenager with inflation in 2024?
Right. What's the minimum wage for allowance?
Yeah, what's the minimum wage?
Okay. Well, I don't tend to talk money or also time on machines very much because it's quantitative and it's not necessarily like this is what you do. But it's either half their age or their age. And if you're going to start giving, I started allowance at 3 years old. If you're going to start giving a child allowance, and let's say they're 8, and often when people hire me, I say you have to start allowance, right? It has nothing to do with chores. It's completely separate. They deserve to learn how to manage and respect money. Okay. So, and how to spend it
I totally agree with that.
Do you get
I
more
think that's
money
a
for
great
chores
foundation.
though? Because clearly minimum wage is existing.
You live here. You
Okay,
live here.
okay.
You contribute. I'm not cleaning up your skid marked underwear. You're a teenager. You can do it yourself. So yeah,
Right.
there's no way I'd pay for that. That's ridiculous. So I'm not saying my kids ever had skid marked underwear. I just threw that one in there. I have no filter, obviously. Anyway, so you have this allowance and you say, I won't go into the detail. I've got tons of videos on this. And the allowance is every single Saturday, I called it Mom's Bank. And I had one kid in the front and one kid in the back of this book. And it had date, description, debit, credit, balance. So I'd say, okay, so here's your allowance. And then we'd discuss it. And they never got any cash ever. This was their banking system. So it was Mom's Bank. I controlled how they spent the money. So anyway, all their money went in there. And on every $100, I gave 10%. When they got to $1,000, I gave $100. Then $1,100 went back to $10 on 100. $20 on 200. You see, I went back. Like, it's not like you're going to get, they reach 1,000, then they reach 1,100, you give them 110, then they, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't work that way. Anyway, but I've got lots of videos on this. And then they only get interest on the same amount once. So if they wanted to spend money, I'd say, I'll tell you what, then you're going to go down by $40. It'll take you 17 weeks to get more interest. And they'd often go, oh, never mind.
Right. That's not worth it.
Gianna, your husband is totally going to start doing this.
I love
Now,
this.
I'm going to tell you a really cute story I did with my son. He was 8 years old, and Pokemon cards, he's 34 now. Pokemon cards.
We're the same age. So yes, we are in that wheelhouse.
Okay.
Yeah.
They just came in. Oh, okay, good. They just came in. So I said to him, and we had allowance, and he loves saving. So I said, I'll tell you what, sweetie, I saw these Pokemon cards come in. All the kids are wasting all their money on them, and I hate stuff like that, right? So I hate waste. I don't mind spending, but I don't like waste because I knew it's going to go nowhere. What are the odds if you happen to have that one card that's worth $1 million 50 years from now? Right. So anyway, whatever it was. So anyway, I said, I'll tell you what. And I always was scheming with things, and they were always like, what? So I said, I'll tell you what. I said, how about we cut a deal here? And in 1 year from now, I'll explain why. I don't want you to have any Pokemon cards. You can't spend any money. If anyone gifts you any, you have to give them away. You can't have any Pokemon cards. And I said, but that's your choice. I said, are you in? And he went, yeah. He trusted me, right? So he said, okay. He was curious. So anyway, throughout that year, all of his friends are trading Pokemon cards. My son's just sitting there eating his lunch, watching. So all of his friends said, what's going on? Oh, my mom has an idea. They all knew me. Oh, right. Okay. So anyway, no Pokemon cards all year. The next year they went back to school. Pokemon cards were being flung like this. They were being, put under desks to level them off. Like, no one had any interest in them. So I said, come on, sweetie. I said, come over here. I want to show you this. So it was 1 year ago yesterday, we made this agreement. I figured it out. I talked to your friends' mothers. I discussed it with them. They spent an average $600 in that 1 year on Pokemon cards.
Wow.
So that's how much money you saved or whatever. Everyone saved on that. What I'm going to do is a bonus for you saving all that money. I'm going to give you an extra $300. Now, I was in control. I was in control of how the money was spent. So I said, plus I'm going to take out $150 and buy you the 2 latest PlayStation games that just came out. And then I said, I invite your friends over to play those games.
Right.
Where'd you get those games? It's not even there. No Pokemon cards. Anyway, that was just one example of how leadership.
But you're also teaching him restraint. And, these are things that he's going to use now or does use now as a man.
Yeah.
Yes. Discipline.
Self-discipline.
Yeah.
Yes. That's something called delayed gratification.
Yeah.
How many of us have that? You should see me on YouTube all the time. God, delay the gratification, you moron. I'm watching YouTube videos. Like, it's just so stupid. I waste all this time on YouTube videos.
Right.
But my kids
on a
are
much
actually better at
smaller
that than I am.
scale, what I've tried doing with Sienna for that like delayed gratification and the restraint thing is that, and quite frankly, a little selfishly to get some time back in my week, is instead of going around like crazy trying to buy gifts for these birthday parties that she's invited to, if the birthday party is at 10, at 9 o'clock, I take her to Target. We go through the aisles. I say, okay, this is for Hannah's birthday. What do you think Hannah would want? Oh, I like this. Oh, I want this. I want this. I said, yeah, you can put that on your list for your birthday, but this is for Hannah's birthday. And she has done great at it. We've done it a number of times, and she picks out what is for Hannah or for that child. Then we go to the gift packaging section. She picks out a bag. We pick a card for them. And she has left that store every time without anything of her own. And it's only for the friend. And I like that, like I said, for my own practice of like, I don't have to worry about running around and getting the gifts, but I feel like it really does teach her that like, I don't just get something every time I go to a store. And there are other times where it's about gifting something to somebody else and not
that can
something
backfire
every
too.
time.
That can backfire too. I did that with my son for the Christmas tree. You know, when you get a little star
The giving
that's got
tree.
a kid's name. Yeah, the giving tree. Mm-hmm. And he says he picked out, and he was only 3. So actually, I used to do a lot of TV. I told this story on TV. Anyway, so it was just such a classic. It makes me look bad. Anyways, it was great. So we did this little star, and he said, this is the dumb part, is he said, oh, I want a little boy my age. Was stupid me, right? So, okay, sounds great. So he got this little star, it was a little boy, 3 years old. So we picked out this ride and tractor thing. It was a really nice gift. So we picked it out. And my son already had one, but it was a different color. So we took it, and I'm not that stupid. I made sure he already had it. So we took it home, wrapped it all up, and I kept going on and on and on about giving. I'm a big giver. I want my kids to learn this. So on and on. Oh, mommy, I'm so happy to give. I'm like, oh, my precious angel, my beautiful boy. He's happy to give. I was so proud of myself, right? So anyway, we get to the mall, the tree, and he's carrying this gift. And I said, okay, go put it under the tree. And he walks over, and then he stops, and he goes, no, I'm going to keep it. Mm-hmm. Like we had to wrestle. I barely, papers flying and wrestle. I finally got it under the tree. I was sweating. There's an audience. People are laughing their guts out at us. So yeah, sometimes it doesn't always work. But yeah, I thought I did everything right, but it didn't work. But I think it was, like you said, you didn't leave any time between either.
Yeah, no, right. I wasn't setting her up for failure, as you would say, by like dangling it in front of her and letting it sit in our home.
Like
we literally go right from Target to the party, and she hands it over, and that's it.
That
and,
is
we
smart.
applaud her for that and all of that.
Do you get her like a trinket or like something every time you go out?
No.
Like
I've tried really hard with that.
We get something every time we go out.
There's that, and there's also with our family. It's really hard because they do that, or if we live far away from our family, so we don't see them.
Taking notes over there.
So when they come to visit, like they bring something, and I've tried to say, like one time they came to visit, and I was like, please, for the love of God, we just went through her birthday, Hanukkah, Christmas. Like she doesn't need one more thing. Please don't bring anything when you come to visit.
Please stop funding Xi Jinping and buying Chinese toys and bringing them to my house. Thank you so
all
much.
she wants is just time with you. Like that's enough for her. Like if you say, hey, I'm going to the grocery store, want to come? Like that's as big to her as like the coolest, newest toy or like the Pokemon cards, like you said. So I've tried with that.
I don't.
Okay, Lisa's dying. What do you have to say to us?
Well, I'm not dying, but I am itching to say something.
Go ahead.
Okay. Little children don't understand exceptions. So why is it sometimes we go to the store and I get something and sometimes I don't?
Right.
Little children don't understand that. It's the same thing as supermarkets. I have a whole thing on this, supermarket tantrums and how to prevent them, is that whenever I took my kids again, I set them up for success, aside from that toy, that disaster Christmas tree thing. But I always had a goodie bag, and it was only taken out when they were sitting up in the shopping trolley. It's the only time they ever saw this, and it was different every time. It was a little lunchbox. It opened like this at the top, and there was something new in there, a little sippy cup and some snacks, whatever. So I never bought them anything when we went out. Not once, not ever. At the checkout line, they couldn't figure out why kids were tantruming and asking for things. My kids had never had anything at the checkout. Mm-hmm. It just wasn't done. But if I did buy something, they would get it at home. And I had snuck it in. They didn't see it. So they just didn't know any different. Another thing, I watch this all the time, is I see moms doing this, and I'm like, oh God, I have to follow them around the aisles because I know where this is headed. Anyway, so they'll allow their children to put the paper towels in the back. Okay, you can help. And then they get a jar of pickles. No, you can't have this. You see the difference?
And the kid starts to
and then the mother gets into this style, the please her parent style of explaining everything, which is ludicrous. Well, pickles it's glass. It will bring the kids starting to cry. And no, but here you can have this instead. And it's a disaster. It's a train wreck.
I do that.
But they don't understand exceptions. If you don't want them to have something every time, don't ever give it to them.
Right.
When you're out and about. Because why would you do that to them?
Right.
Yeah.
The one thing I want to transition to talking about which has been a big issue in our home, is the difference in respect between me and my husband. And it's not necessarily like when one is playing the defense versus the other. It's more just like when my husband goes away and on his business trips, when he's physically not in this home, me asking her to do something, even though he's upstairs, goes one way. And then me asking her to do something when he's not there at all goes a completely different way. So I know what you're going to say is it has to do something with my leadership and how strong I'm being. But is there, and I'm totally open to hear that, and I do want to hear what you have to say on that, but is there something to be said for the fact of like, is she grieving or mad that he's gone, which is then pulling into like feelings into that?
No. I'd love to tell you it is, but I've never heard of that. Okay, I'll tell you, there usually is, if there's a leader, there's often a pleaser, because the leader is the prized role. The leader, he could be the authority though. Children will listen to an authority, which is more fear-based, and they will rebel against an authority down the road, but they'll never rebel against a leader. The leader is the prized role. You are the one that they look to for everything. And I was the leader. My mom was the leader. My dad was the pleaser. My ex-husband was the pleaser. Here's how it goes. The pleaser, and I'm not saying you should do this because you're not necessarily, but I'll tell you what my dad used to do. He gave me whatever I wanted. I was about 3 and my mom said, that's enough, Phil. Don't give her whatever she wants. And I can remember I always would ask him when my mom wasn't around, if her back was turned. Do you know what my dad figured out one day? I was so mad. Anyway, I said, Daddy, can I please have this? Sure, sweetie pie, you can have anything you want. Let's check with mom first. Oh, never mind. It's just that instant. Now, it's not that my mom was the authority. She was very much the pleaser. I wanted to please my mom. I didn't want to disappoint my mom, right? And if my mom ever looked at me like this, I was devastated. I would just shrivel up.
So wait. So now, you want to please the pleaser?
You want to please the leader.
You want to please the leader. So your mom was the leader, your dad was the pleaser.
The pleaser you take advantage of.
Okay.
You don't listen to. Okay.
So you think simply if I said, Daddy said you need to go upstairs and brush your teeth.
That's why I said you won't necessarily do it this way. But when there's a very clear leader and a pleaser, if that pleaser wants to still be the pleaser, then you defer to the leader. Say, sure you can, but let's check with mom first. My ex-husband figured this. I told him, he says, what should I do when I'm out with them? They definitely push me around more. He used to say, do you want me to tell mom? That's all it took.
Oh, my mom would always say that. I'm going to call daddy. I'm going to call daddy.
I never even did anything. I know.
They would have been embarrassed. I don't want to become that parent though.
Now. Oh, I do. I want to be the leader. I want to be the leader all day.
Yeah, but I don't want to be the one saying. I don't want to be the one saying, do you want me to call dad? Do I have to call daddy? Like, no, I don't want to be that.
I'm saying that's a dynamic that can work. But I'm not saying you don't want to be there.
Yeah.
You can both be the leaders. Okay. But there's always one that's a little bit stronger. Now, the leader is everything I teach. I can't sum that up, but the leader is the one that brings out the best in them. They have more pride in themselves when they're respectful, and they tend to want to please you. When you bring out the best in a child, when they like themselves when they're with you, when they say no to you, they don't like themselves in that moment. Their self-esteem takes a deep dive. Deep dive. As soon as they say no to a parent, self-esteem in the toilet.
And that's leader or pleaser, doesn't matter?
Yeah, both. You don't feel good about yourself.
So the child wants to please the leader. What do they want to do for the pleaser?
Nothing yet, but I teach pleasers how to be leaders. Okay. So you follow through. Also check out, now she's almost 3. You can actually look into I have a boot camp course or just the free behavior board. And there's a rule and a consequence for everybody in the family. It starts at the age of 3. You're on there too. But their love language is fun. The more you play in their silly little world, the more power you have. They are listening to you. But also you're bringing out the best in them. But you have to learn how to discipline. You have to say, no, we can't do that. Here's the consequence. You can sweep the kitchen floor within 15 minutes of being asked to do so. If they won't do that, well, media blackout for 24 hours starts now.
Whoa.
And that's how it goes. That's how you do it.
What happens when the pleaser isn't on board? I need your marriage counseling now, Lisa.
Well, I could go in a million different directions with this. There's nothing wrong with being the pleaser so long as you defer to the leader. If you want to stay the pleaser, we used to call my ex-husband the treat master. Okay. And he was a really good dad, and also I didn't want him messing up.
Yeah.
I didn't want him messing up the kids because I knew what I was doing and I didn't want him interfering. But they do lean into the leader.
I don't need your help. Get out of here.
No, but he was a great dad. As soon as he came home, I don't remember ever changing a diaper when he came home. He completely took over. So he was the treat master. He was a lot of fun, but I was really fun and goofy too. So it was a very happy household. Like it was a lot of laughter in the household. But you don't want to remain the pleaser. So I'm telling you, you have to work on being a leader. And it is work. It's follow through. And you said something about, well, sometimes we get by or something, sometimes we don't. That's the pleaser. And I'll be honest with you, if I was going to a party and a birthday party, and this is what I would have done. And what you did was very smart, right? Because you were worried about it. I would still walk into the storm. I would probably get the present the day before and let them have a fit to learn a lesson.
Mm.
Right? You see, you've kind of avoided the whole lesson. You're trying to please her. You're trying to avoid the
What
scene.
happens if Sienna rips the box open?
Well, don't let her have access to it. Then I would buy another one and I would donate that one. That's exactly what I would do.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're actually trying to please her. That was the pleaser parent style.
So that's what's interesting is you talking about this. My husband is definitely the pleaser. We've come from analyzing our backgrounds and seeing mistakes that were made or things that were done and how is that infiltrating into now. And that's one of them where it is an anxiety for him to have the child upset. So he just gives whatever he can. So for example, she really wanted to bring.
Wait a minute.
Go ahead.
But just a sec. You said that when you say no. So in other words, he just never says no. Is that what you're saying? Is that what you mean? Because you said if she says no to you, she never says no to him because he makes sure that he's just the spoiler.
What if Mark is shopping with you before the birthday party and she says, I want this Barbie too? Does he say no or does he buy it for her?
He yields to me, but if I weren't there, I'd be interested to see what happened.
He would buy.
So then he isn't the authority. He isn't the leader. He's the spoiler.
He's the treat master general.
No. The treat master that never says no. But they do tend to act up more with the treat master. Like my kids were always trying to please me. So, and I was the goofy one by far. I was the goofy parent. I was the one chasing the kids around the house with underpants on my head.
That's me. That's me. But I want them to be well behaved.
That is the power though. That's the power. Though my mom used to say all the time, I don't know how you do it. You're nuts with those kids. And she goes, but they listen to you. And I said, yeah. But if they acted out, those underpants would come right off. And I'd say, game over, like that. No second choice, no second chance.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh, I think something you said really struck a chord is the love language of fun. And that's where I think this is that in the times, because everything that you just said, I don't think that my husband is the leader. I think he really is the pleaser or the spoiler. So it's if there is something that he wants her to do, I don't want to say bribe, but he does kind of okay, well, let's do this. And then we'll direct it into the other area of doing something that you really want to do. Whereas I'm just you should just do this because this is we brush our teeth every single day. Why are we fighting about it? This is what you have to do right now. And when he's away, the fun aspect, I 100% agree with you. That is a love language. That is what gets the kids. When I see that she is in a really either anxious state or she's not listening, I try to break it down and just get on her level, get into her world, like you said. But when he's away, there's less time for that. Because when I have both of them by myself, when I'm managing the whole house, that's 100%. There's not going to be as much fun. So maybe that's the challenge. I'm going to challenge that. The less fun she gets, the more she challenges me.
I'm going to challenge that. I remember I always managed to find time for goofy. And I remember once my kids were tired. We had to get somewhere. So I came out to the car with my bra on the outside of my top.
Oh my God.
And I had another bra underneath so I could take it off. Anyway, and I never said a word. And the kids, it became a game. Who's going to say something first?
Oh my gosh.
There's always time for fun. Or if I was rushing around, this is embarrassing, but I've done it a million times already. If I'm really rushing around, the kids are getting on my nerves because they're tired and I'm trying to cook dinner, I'd say, that's enough. I've had it. And I would go like this. If you kids don't settle down right now, like it's just introducing fun into
where
everything.
did you just pull carrots out of, by the way?
A drawer?
They're foam. They're foam things.
Oh.
But I always had, whenever I was working with
She had
toddlers,
these
I
little
always had
foam
these.
pieces. I'm just going to say for the people on the
They
podcast
looked like
that aren't
carrots.
listening on YouTube. Yeah, she had these little foam pieces that look like carrots that she just stuffed into her
They're
nose. and
pencil
she's in her-
grips. Pencil
Pencil
grips.
grips.
Oh my God,
Got
I
it.
remember those.
These are
Right.
freaking
What a
brilliant. I had them
nostalgia.
in my ears. I had these things coming out of my top. Kids were just like, wow.
Okay, wait. So I want to talk about love language fun. How much, because I've seen videos online that say just 15 minutes of quality time with your kids a day.
No. They don't care about quality time. They just care about just having an atmosphere of being fun. And
But what if
like, we
people have their
laugh.
kids in daycare and they're working all day
When
long?
they come home, you've got to invest at least 5 minutes in something
5
like
minutes.
tag or hide and seek. The second you get into the door, you hide, I'll come and get you. Like
What
I
are
always
your-
had something.
What are your thoughts
you
on
know what our
rushing kids? Like rushing them out the door or
I'm
like,
very big on that. If you have to sometimes.
Oh.
But I always made it a game. I said, I'm going to get there first. And then I would say, but we all have to hop on one foot. Like I was always trying to introduce fun and levity into the, like we just had a fun household. It was goofy.
But then what about
Another
the
thing-
transition? If you do that 5 minutes of tag, and then how do you say, okay, now mommy's got to go cook dinner. I
Because
can't play
I've set
tag
a timer.
anymore.
They get used to it.
Yeah.
5 minutes starting now.
Okay.
And then beep, beep, all over. Okay, go and do that. That you filled their bucket. And then
Jack
they're
does
more
that.
likely to.
we'll get him ready for bed. And then he's like, Mommy and Daddy's bed, 5 minutes. So we go into Mommy and Daddy's bed and he can, watch a show, or we like jump on the bed and do handstands and do fun. And then it's time to go to sleep. So that's okay as long as there is a beginning and an end. You need a time stamp.
Well, that's
on
what
it.
timers are for. That's what timers are for. I should get commission on these things, but the whipped cream in the face game too. I'm sure I've sold thousands of them. Anyway, those clocks that have the colors, so little kids can see the color disappearing. When all the blue is gone, then it's over. So visual, and you can find them anywhere. But yeah, you've got to fill up their fun bucket. The worse they are, the more important fun is. You got to find moments. Another thing I used to do with kids. Now this is insane. It's kind of embarrassing, but I'm out there all the time being stupid. So anyway, one of the things I did with my kids and other kids was I told them, I always wanted to be a mom. I always had stories going. This one's embarrassing. Anyway, I said, I always wanted to be a mom. But my past job, I was an international spy. And I said, the world leaders really needed my information. The kids are like, wow, So this is like, as they get a little bit older, they can understand this stuff. Wow. But not old enough that they think, what a crock of crap. But anyway, so anyway, I said, but I used to be a spy, but I said, and so now I don't work for them anymore. But the world leaders still sometimes need my advice. So what they did was they implanted a chip in my temple here, and then I can communicate by Morse code. So what they do is they beep when they, just a minute.
And now she's pressing her temple in Morse code.
Sorry about that. I had to
communicate with the world leaders.
Yeah. So I always had a scam going. I was always doing that. And kids are very, they love that stuff. It's just fun. Now, do they know it's ridiculous? Yeah, they know it's ridiculous, but that's the fun.
Yeah, but they know that you're taking the time to be ridiculous with them, and that's what means the most to them.
Exactly. I love kids, and that comes across. Now, I work with troubled teenagers, and it's the same thing. I remember once, now I do not recommend this. They already knew who I was, so they knew I was crazy. But I used to mentor troubled, violent teenagers. So one of them, I just wasn't connecting with this kid. And I said, look, I got to find something to like. It's how I operate, right? And I said, I got to find something to like. And I said, but right now you're quite repugnant. And they would laugh. And then I'd say, okay, I can work with that. So you always got to try and find a way to have fun with them. Fun is all of our love language. I say, if you make me laugh, I'll follow you anywhere. It is my love language too, by the way.
Yeah.
So it helps me out that I'm goofy, but you don't have to be. A lot of my clients, they say, well, I'm not you. And I totally get that. Thank God we're not all like this. But one of my clients was very quiet, very shy. She goes, I'm not fun. I never have been. And I said, well, what do you enjoy? What are you good at? And she goes, well, I do like to tell stories. And she was very sweet. I like to tell stories. I said, well, what do you mean by that? And she goes, well, I incorporate people into my stories. And I said, well, tell me a story. And she told me the most beautiful story. And she incorporated me in it. All I wanted to do was curl up into her lap. Like she just had a way about her. And I said, let's do this with your kids more. And she started doing it. And that's how she connected with her kids. It wasn't shoving pencil things up her nose. That was her way. Everyone has something. And another one is a singer. They would sing. Another one was a dancer. They would do TikTok dances together. So find a way to find your inner child. And if you're faking it, it doesn't work.
they'll know.
But
If you're
where do
truly
you
enjoying them, it
start?
works.
Like, where do you start if your 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old is a little dictator within your home, and you see the parents where like the kid's throwing a tantrum and they have to take them out of the restaurant? Or we were at a restaurant one time and all Jack wanted to do was go see the cars outside, and one of us had to keep getting up from the table to bring him out to see the cars, and there was no consoling him. So it's like, what do you do in those situations? What are you had the 4 tips for teens? Like, what are the 4 tips to start
Toddlers?
to gain your
For
leadership back?
toddlers, yeah.
The toddler ones, well, that's the most common one I talk about because most of my followers are toddler parents.
Yep.
Most of my clients right now,
because we're the ones
teen
like,
parents.
what
Yeah.
do we do?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, am I going to
Okay.
have a rotten kid?
Okay. Well,
I'm not allowed to say that to them, but I can say it to you.
yeah. Well, lots of my clients say if I'd known then what I know now, I never would have had kids. A lot of
Oh,
parents
boy.
have said that. And they're crying when they say it. And I just laugh. I say, yeah, I hear this all the time. So
Wow.
they're driving you nuts doesn't mean you mean it.
It's a shame.
You're just,
Yeah.
so I just laugh it off and say, let's go. Come on, let's move forward so you can enjoy them. Now, these are my top 5 tips for parenting toddlers. Now, you got to manage the situation. You're never going to train a toddler. You're managing the environment and yourself. That's the way you look at it. Okay. So number
Okay.
1 with toddlers, childproof your home so you never have to say no. I had nothing they couldn't touch below the waist. Everything was up high. One of my followers actually said, can't see it from here, but I have all my plants. And they said, oh, I see you still do that. Plants are up high. Anyway, I'm just a grandmother now. But anyway, okay, so childproof your home so you never have to say no. So you're kind of setting them up for success more. Number 2 is you set up a toy rotation system so they're never bored. My kids had like 5 toys out at any given time. Once a week, once a month, we'd rotate them. Number 3, because you're always trying to stimulate their imagination, right? And when you do pull it out after a few months of them not seeing a toy, they'll play with it differently. They're a bit older.
Yep.
Number 3 is when you want to connect with a toddler. Now, toddler is under the age of 3. When you want to connect with them, you do so in their world. You don't go to the nail salon with them. You go to the park and roll down the hill. I used to come home with leaves in my hair. So they look at you differently. When you just watch what they do and join in. Let them lead the fun. Okay. Number 4 is when you want to discipline a toddler, you do so in their world. It's the same thing. You don't do these mini therapy sessions discussing all their big feelings and big emotions. It's absolute garbage. That's for the mom. It has nothing to do with the toddler. You use consistent corrective actions. They relate to that. And then you get back to the fun again. Okay. You're always trying to get back to the fun. And number 5 is stop trying to figure them out. They're not figure outable. They're brand new, fresh human beings. They've got 1 marble and some tumbleweed floating around upstairs. Imagine if you've only been in the world for 2 years and one of those years you're a potato laying on a mattress. Like they are brand.
I use that
new.
word.
Potato. We
I
call
say
them
that
potatoes.
all the time.
We
Oh
love
my
that.
God.
Yes.
But it's the understanding of toddlers that's so off. It's not that there's
Yes.
anything wrong with them. It's just that parents just don't understand them.
Yes.
Right? So you're always
Yes.
trying to guide
And
them
I
into
also
the
think
fun.
like the people that are saying this, I'm like, are you perfect? Like, is
Right.
your behavior great all the time? Like,
Well,
kids
I'm not
are
smearing
humans.
I'm not smearing poop on the wall either, and they might do that. And a lot of parents
No,
freak
but-
out as if they should know better. Well, they don't know that that's wrong.
Right.
A lot of kids will do that. So yeah, you got to understand they're brand new. They're just learning.
Yeah. That was really helpful to hear. Thank you for
And
for
it also,
sharing that
I feel
with
like
us.
that was
You
the
have-
gateway drug for people to now go follow you on social media because you do
I was
crank
gonna
out this
say-
awesome content.
You have a ton more to share with the audience. So before we close out, let everybody know where they can find you and some of the courses that you offer.
Well, I'm on bratbusters.com. Just Bratbusters. Now, I've got a pretty hefty following now. There's a ton of imposters out there, unfortunately. So it's bratbusters with an S.com, not .ca, not .net. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of imposters stealing money off people. It's really upsetting. But anyway, so yeah, it's bratbusters.com.
And if you're
I'm
worried,
all
go
over
to
the-
one
I'm
of your
all over the
verified social media accounts and click on the link
And just go right
directly
from there.
that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Lisa,
I've kept
thank
it
you
very
so
simple.
much. I love that
Thank
you
you very
blew
much.
up. I love that you just spit on gentle parenting. That was so funny.
I did not.
You gave it a
I
side
did not.
eye.
I would never do that. I've never said that ever. I've never said that ever. What I do, because I don't think that's the right thing to do. I don't tend to squash people down to build myself up, because there's a place for everything out there. Okay. So if people resonate with another way, just dump me, say she's an idiot, and go with someone else. You have to believe in what I'm saying to follow it and to follow through with it, or else it's not going to help anyone. So I would never dump. It's not my style. I would never
Love
dump on
that.
anyone. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
You're
we
hired.
trust and believe what you said here today. So we'll put it into practice. We'll have like a recap in like a year and be like, okay,
Yeah, we
here's
need
how
to
they're
come back.
behaving. Yeah.
Well, I'll ask
All right,
my
well,
daughter.
thank you so much.
She manages me, so if she says I can do it a year from now, then I'll be allowed to.
Oh my God, I love that. Thank you so much.